And now to our final story. As the summer draws to a close, households and businesses alike are bracing for a season of transition. September often marks new beginnings, from children heading back to school and students to starting university, to professionals returning to work with fresh challenges. But this period can also bring uncertainty, career shifts and difficult choices. It's against this backdrop that questions of self-leadership and reliance come sharply into focus. How do we navigate change, manage disappointment, and find purpose when the path already feels uncertain? To explore these themes, I was earlier joined by Obi James, who is an award-winning coach and the author of Let Go Leadership. As we continue a conversation we began last year about what it truly means to lead ourselves first. Obi James, hello. It is such a pleasure having you back once again on Channel's Business Global. It's been about a year since we last spoke. I think it was sort of New Year's resolutions. Yes. And it's that time of the year again, as you can see with the wind. I know. It's a gear change. Yes. A lot of people putting their kids back to school or starting new horses or just in a general change, a sort of career path. Yeah. What sort of advice would you give to people who are feeling as if it's time to let go and embrace something new at this time of the year?
It's a very interesting time of the year, isn't it? Because we're coming into September. Yeah. We've gone through the mid-year part of
those bar months.
Yes, exactly. And then you've had the summer break. And I think it's generally a time for reflection for a lot of people. People tend to get into September realizing that time's flying and it's only a matter of time before Christmas and the year's out. So I think in terms of Let Go Leadership, I think that there is something about checking in with yourselves right now to have a think about what were your intentions at the start of this year, how far you've come with them, and actually where do you need to kind of juggle things a little bit, maybe shift a few things, and it's home run for the year, right? It's so. What story do you want to tell about 2025?
Absolutely everything. There's so much information out there. In fact, sometimes I feel like there's an abundance of information, almost too much. Yeah. Everybody's writing down their to-do lists. In fact, you can write down the same to-do list every hour, and you never get anything done. But as you said, we're at that transitional period. What are the kind of practical things that you can do at this time of the year to plan to finally winter?
I think in addition to checking in with how far you've come, I think there's something about self-compassion that is really important at this time of the year. People are tired and people are overwhelmed, and there's so much going on around climate change. AI is a huge thing at the moment, and I think it's feeding a level of overwhelm for people where they're almost shutting down rather than thinking about actually what's the way forward. So it might be that you could start to rethink your goals for this year, think about other things I need to shift and what must I absolutely achieve by the end of this year. What do I need to let go of so that I do really well in the things that I do choose to do, as opposed to carried on trying to do it all, which we tend to fall into.
Absolutely. How can you check the temperature, Obi? Because of course we know there's a lot of us don't want to get up out of bed in the morning. Yeah. It doesn't mean because you sort of tap your alarm 5 times in a row that you don't love your job, right? How are you able to decipher whether or not you hate your job and it's time for a change, or whether or not you're just in a rut?
I always go back to values. I think a lot of us come into the work that we do and just somewhat fall into it, and then we go with the flow. I often compare it to being on Oxford Street and going with the tourists and being shoved into a shop that you had no intention of going into. And I think there's something about stepping back a little bit and being intentional about, what are my values? And is this role or is this job or is this organization allowing me to live and honor those values? And if it's not, where do I need to make some changes? And it's a crucial thing for us because, this whole, especially, I'm going to think about Nigeria as an example. I think lots of us go into careers that we were kind of
engineered.
And you do get
engineered by an engineer.
A doctor, a lawyer, an accountant.
We did well, didn't we?
We've done well. And it's taken some, hard conversations and really standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And I do think that as you get older, you start to think about what fulfillment looks like for you. And for you to be truly fulfilled, your values have to be honored in the work that you do.
Yeah.
So it's less about trying to fit into the roles and places you found yourself, and actually stepping back a little bit and thinking, who am I? And actually what works for me? And how would I be fulfilled? And what would make me happy? And what are those careers that I need to be considering, or roles I need to be considering? They're tough conversations, and they're tough reflections. And it's not just your work, it's with everything. It's with relationships, it's with countries where you live, whatever it might be. There's some soul searching that needs to be had, and some reconnection with self, I think, before you start on that journey of change and transition. That's why I want to talk about perception. You mentioned AI. Obviously, we've got to talk about social media. It can be quite distorting. You see really glossy pictures.
Yes.
A lot of them have been filtered.
Yes.
No, we have no problem with the filter, but it's not exactly what people see. And I think sometimes for a lot of leaders, CEO types, they can be in these really powerful positions, but it's quite lonely. But people wouldn't think it's lonely. Talk to me about how people can navigate that loneliness, maybe joining networking communities. I know Michelle Obama spoke a lot about how her large network of friends helped her during her down days in the White House. Is having a good network great? And how do you think people can get into networks, especially if they're quite shy on that, but even if they are CEOs? I think it's such a crucial thing for us to consider. CEO loneliness is real.
Wow.
There's a lot. I coach a lot of executives, and actually one thing that keeps coming back is the loneliness. Where do I go to? Where do I take my real self and my real concerns and my real challenges? Because social media makes it look like everyone's doing amazing.
You're always busy.
It's not just the
You're at
filter.
every party.
Exactly, but it's more about actually how happy am I? And we all put up that kind of smiley face, and everyone's trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I think the higher up you go, the lonelier it gets, unfortunately. And the networks are really important. And I also think it's about having the right network.
Yeah.
So a network doesn't have to be going out and partying and having
Constant
fun
socializing,
simply out and getting tired from networking. I think it's about having your core set of friends. And oftentimes you find those people where your values are aligned, the people that you can really sit down with and say, look, I'm really struggling. I'm not sure this is the right place for me. Or I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing for my team, or I need help and the expectations are too much. And as it's, you've rightfully touched on, AI is overwhelming. How do I navigate this? And where do you take all these worries and vulnerability to? And I think that's the biggest thing. It's the vulnerability of loneliness that then kind of gets higher as you get older. There's a need as you get more senior to bring that vulnerability out and not to kind of shut down and then be on your own.
Start snapping.
And then there's the impact on others, but also impact on your mental health.
Absolutely.